This is Venusian Womb, a space for orienting to reality through the body, where we explore how systems, culture, identity, and lived experience shape human perception, and what it means to stay grounded, question deeply, listen honestly, and learn when to trust yourself, when to question yourself, and how to discern the difference. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Venusian Womb podcast. We are so excited to bring this episode to you. This is our second episode of the season, and we have a very, very special guest. She is a wordsmith. She is a medicine woman. She is a guide for rites of passage and all things connecting to the womb and the body and intuition and just being. And it is such a pleasure to have Jess join us for this episode. We're going to be talking about beyond blood, about menopause, and what this rite of passage is for women that are entering their crone years, that are experiencing a process of maturing and refinement and wisdom that is deeply part of their life journey and their experience, and compiling that into these stories and this wisdom to share with all of us. And so we are just so excited to honor this archetype of the crone, and to all of the crones that may be listening to this podcast, even for those men that might be listening to this as well that are experiencing maturing. We want to honor them as well if you're here. And with that being said, I'm going to pass it off to you, Jess, if there's anything that you feel called to share about yourself or how you want to introduce yourself in this space.
Aloha, beautiful women. Thank you so much for having me. Um, yeah, I have been in a process of becoming, and I have found myself to understand it in a different way than what my ancestors and what the women that came before me have understood it to be. And I have been able to alchemize many wounds and much pain into purpose and pleasure and power and permission and wisdom. And it's such a gift. And it hasn't always been easy. And it's not always easy, but it is my path. Yeah, it is my devotion to be this for my lineage, for my community, and for my daughter. Yeah, to show what's possible.
Thank you. It's so important to have women doing this work, especially I think another big reason we were so drawn to even starting this whole season with you. And it was also so divinely. Jess reached out to us and we had thought of having her on the podcast. And we're like, oh, perfect. Jess is going to be the first guest speaker we're going to have on the podcast. But we went to a women's festival, and we were so fortunate to witness a croning ceremony. And it was our first time. And it was funny for me. I'm going to speak on my experience. I don't know if Milena had the same thing, but when I saw it on the schedule, I'm like, oh, I don't need to go to that because I'm a maiden. I'm not a crone. Isn't for me. And as we were walking the stage to go to a separate workshop, we heard the facilitator calling all crony yonis and those who want to bear witness to the ceremony. And it was a full body, like, we looked at each other and our bodies just turned towards the stage. We're like, nope, that's where we need to be. And it was so profound and powerful and emotional to just witness these women in this threshold of crossing from into their croning age, like post menstruation. And I was thinking of you, Jess. I was thinking of Beyond Blood, and I was just thinking of, oh my goodness, it is so important for women to witness each other in these thresholds, in this rites of passage, and to listen and hear the wisdom they have to share, because they've lived a whole life. And wow, these are the codes, the medicine, the beautiful words of love and just expression that they had to share in that ceremony was so impactful for me as a maiden, for maybe parts of me that didn't see the value or the especially when I think of just how much our society puts down aging
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
but so I'm so excited to have you here to talk about this and to kind of hopefully ripple the importance of this for everyone to be in this conversation and also talking about it and discussing.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. I'm honored
Mm,
to be here.
I can say
mm,
that that was also a reflection of the experience that I had, and I also realized in that process how many stories are around this idea of aging and maturing, and this really does, so beautifully bring us into our question about how these stories that women are being taught around aging, around menopause, around becoming a crone, what are these stories actually telling women? And what is it that we are being called to discern beneath these narratives of what our society or culture is telling us about the process of aging?
Our society tells us that our best years are behind us and that beauty is found in youth. Really, that you're declining and you're done, you're finished. Um, yeah, it's a hard time. It's really a difficult time. Your body's changing. Your whole identity is shifting. Your hormones, life, relationships, and just the physical aspect of it, getting gray hair. I've been getting gray hair since like 30s actually. And then the chunky chunks and just all of these um new places and spaces to explore. And that is really what shifted for me rather than rejecting, because I rejected, I colored, I didn't even know what color my hair was until I got a 5 month grow out. 5 months, I haven't colored my hair, saved about $1,000. And just learning to work with my body and yeah, the places that I am programmed to reject, through the work that I've been doing, I have learned to accept and to love and to embrace. And through that embracing, listening for a deeper message and what is here for me to extract wisdom and not um, believe that my body is something to control.
yes.
It's really something to be curious about.
Mm.
That is
I
so
love, yeah.
powerful. I'm gonna let you take that thread. I'm integrating.
Yeah. I especially how you said the word explore and the emphasis you put on explore and curiosity. And that brings me kind of into like the medicalization of
Mhm.
the women's body, of just what women's bodies do and how pathologizing and frustrating and invalidating the experiences of just being women it is, and making it feel like we're broken, there's something to fix, and that it's so overwhelming. Yeah, that's what came through as you said that for me. I don't know if there's something you want to add.
Well, I mean, I think that it is exactly, when we're thinking about aging, what are the resources that we would naturally go to learn about the process of what's happening in our body? And
Mm.
for the most part, that would either be our elders, which is why this work is so important, or a doctor. And when I think about the support that I, as a woman, even in my maiden years, like it's just been so incredibly medicalized and about controlling the body. Growing up in this culture of biohacking and longevity, which in a way I love because it's really placing this value on health and well-being, and that is truly wealth. And at the same time, it's also just this whole idea of reverse aging. It really is trying to control a natural process that's happening in the body. And it's not honoring
the wisdom of the process of actually going through this aging process. And just considering your background as a nurse as well, and then transitioning into this work, how has it been for you, like shifting this conditioning of the medicalization and pathology of this rite of passage versus the embodied perspective that you're living and teaching right now?
You know, yeah, 24 years I served the bodies of women in the hospital. And this is what I say, like, I was serving the lost wise woman. So much of our dis-ease and illness comes from avoidance of the body, the fear of uncomfortability, of the sensations that are not easy to be with. And as you know, that was the big thread that I have pulled, is avoidance of the body. And also, just in general, women are imprinted with serving others before that they serve themselves. And this is, pouring from an empty cup will put you in the hospital, maybe in your 50s, maybe in your 60s, but that's what happens. Chronic, migraines, hypertension, a lot of the disease that I saw, what I was seeing was these women, and then I could see, them not using their voice, them not expressing, not moving their body, not being tended to, nourished, cared, adored. And, medicine is necessary. We do need medicine. But what we don't need is to always prescribe and use protocols, because the body is very individual. The body of women is very individual, and we need to treat the whole body and her circumstances and her relationships and what she's putting into her body and what her beliefs are. There's just so much that goes into it. And while I was working in the hospital, it would be frustrating sometimes to be forced into a prescription or a protocol or something that just did not feel resonant in my body. And I knew there was another way, but I'm like, in this system. And I would, practice my medicine at times, always like hiding. And one of the first womb healings that I did, actually, I want to say this was like 2019, and I had done a Reiki training. And I had this woman who had ovarian cancer, and she was very, very sick. And I was giving her pain medicine, and I just got this hit. I was like, you need to pray with this woman. You need to put your hands on her body. You need to, I was all coming through, and I'm like, what do I do? And so I shut the door and I asked her, I was like, can I pray with you? She was like, yes. Like nobody had ever asked her that in the hospital. And
Goosebumps.
I just had this beautiful white light meditation that came through, put my hands on her belly, and it was just changed me. It changed me. It changed her. She told me it was much better than the Dilaudid that she was getting. And yeah,
Wow.
it was really, it was life changing. It was life giving and life changing.
And that's the thing too, right? It's like, wow, to so completely honor that calling and that knowing of this is what I need to do, and doing that and being witnessed in that and sharing that, because now knowing you, Jess, like that is your medicine. It is hands-on touch. It is such a prayerful expression that comes from a soulful place that people can listen to and feel seen and heard and held and nourished, which is what, women in their crone years that have been giving from an empty cup, that have been showing up for those, and also giving and not being reciprocated and honored and revered. And it's just, I can feel so much of like even reflections of my own mom and the ways that she's learning to nourish herself, and the amount of resistance and friction for her to put herself first because it doesn't feel even accessible or available for her. And I just,
this is just so beautiful to actually be that permission slip and show that woman this is what it actually is to be held and nourished. And, you know, I'm sure that she may have left that experience and learned a way of how she can hold that space for herself. And I mean, this kind of does bring us into this layer of the somatic themes of this conversation. And one of the things that you had mentioned on the call that we had was around this theme of grief. And so we're really curious about how does grief and the shame or unexpressed emotions, how do they live in the body? And also what have you learned about helping these experiences move in your space holding?
Yeah, so I have, of course, a theme that I call this morning medicine, and it's MOURNING. Morning medicine is the menopause portal, and there's so much grief that comes with this threshold, with this time in your life, because we are losing our mother body. We're losing, our children are leaving the nest, our parents are getting ill, we're losing our parents, relationships are shifting. Um, yeah, it's a massive grief portal, and the contraction of grief, because grief is a wave. Grief is, many different emotions. It's like we reject it. There's that resistance, and there's a lot of fear with resistance, and that's this force that we feel. I feel like fear is not even an emotion. Fear is a force, and then our reaction to fear is the emotion. And yeah, just like that denial, which leads us to shame, and then we hide, and it's so much constriction. And yeah, we find ways to open and to expand, and it's through really expression. It lives so much in the heart, the womb, and the gut. This is where these emotions really get um tangled. And for me, I was in this training. I was called to this training to walk me through this portal. And as we were being guided to the hands-on, the first time that my hands met my body in a ceremonial, nourishing way through guidance from my teacher, I went to my diaphragm, and there was a knot um, that terrified me, and it felt like a stone, and I freaked out. I was like, it's cancer, and I start pushing on it, and I was getting aggressive, and then in this panic, and then I hear tender power, and I start just lightly touching and breathing, and using my breath and the light and softening, and I could feel it unwinding, and
Wow.
I could feel like just little like energy particles leaving. And she told me her name was Shame. And it wasn't just my shame. This is shame for many of the women in my lineage that have lived in silence. And that's the purpose of doing this work. It's not me, it's always we. It's never me.
I want to invite everyone who's listening to just take a deep breath because that was very profound. And as Jess was speaking, maybe it was reflecting shame in your own body. And just taking a moment to hold it tenderly, hold the shame tenderly, as Jess just said. Thank you for sharing that experience. This whole transition, especially of like women's voices being silenced and not speaking up as women are moving through these transitions. When it is such a big, like, there's so much grief. The body's going through big changes, the way you might be relating to the world, relating to your partner, relating to yourself, like, your whole body's going under metamorphosis. And to be do that silently too, to do that alone, that is so hard and shitty to feel like you have to hide
Yeah.
this part of you, this this natural evolution of the women body, and do it silently. And the shame that comes in. And in as you were speaking, Jess, there was little pieces. I know that you had mentioned once, and this really stuck with me, Lynn and I, that the opposite of depression is expression. And
Mhm.
I'd love if you want to share the opposites of what you've come into embodying and recognizing through working with women and your own practice with yourself. Um, yeah, I'm curious to know the other opposites of the other. I think it was the stages or like the phases of grief. Yeah.
Yeah, and one thread I want to pull is that, shame dies when stories are told in safe places.
Yes.
Mhm.
And, I've learned this by being with women and in the lineage that I've trained with, I was the oldest one. Most of these women are younger, which was
Mm.
so interesting and humbling. But really just I had, by the time my hands came to my body, I had been creating safety within my body. So it was a safe place to allow this stories to unravel. Um, but coming back, I just wanted to share that. Coming
Yeah.
back to, yeah, the antidotes. It's the antidote. The antidote to denial is awareness. Denial is the first stage of grief. Like we are avoiding something that is uncomfortable that we might fear. And the illumination of it is the antidote. And this is awareness. Um, and it's a gift, but it's often difficult to face. Whatever this truth is, awareness is truth. Um, and then the next stage of grief is anger. And the antidote to anger is compassion and understanding. And then it's shame and guilt. And the antidote to shame and guilt is forgiveness. And forgiveness, looks different. Forgiveness, is a letting go, but really what forgiveness has been for me has been this absorption of the shame, absorption of the distortion, the absorption of the distortion, and really just like that alchemy, that transformation of whatever the hardship was, the compressed hardship, the pohaku, and Hawaiians call these pohakus, which is the density, like stones that live and they block your pillar of light. And then the next stage of grief is depression. And the antidote to depression is expression. And then there's acceptance. And acceptance is the answer to every single problem you'll ever have. And this is the field of potential and possibility.
Mm.
It's becoming, it's that process of releasing what was and allowing what is.
Mm. Thank you.
Like
The
a moment
antidote.
of silence for this wisdom. And it's just like so helpful to have these antidotes, to have these concepts and frameworks to almost start to like wrap our minds, because a lot of us in this world are living from our mind. And to even begin creating safety in the body, the mind needs to understand what's happening. Otherwise, it starts to freak out a little bit. And then there's some just stories that can start to lead in the ways that we're operating and relating to our bodies. And I think it's so beautiful to have this wisdom and these frameworks to be able to start understanding how can we move this density? How can we move these tangled emotions where maybe there's multiple different emotions and there's stories interlaced within those emotions, and it just feels like this big knot. And the beauty of having people and women, as women, having women that can hold us and help starting to untangle that knot and pulling at these different threads and understanding what is underneath them, and eventually getting to that place of like acceptance that there are all these threads, and that just that process of unraveling, of accepting that whole process.
Mhm.
And it's just so beautiful. Like, that really stood out to Megan and I so deeply because it's so helpful and it's also so true. And I think that grief is something that we will meet time and time again as we go through the womb journey and all of these beautiful processes of metamorphosis that we undergo as women. And so this kind of brings us into, I guess, maybe a more tangible application or understanding of how, as women, we can begin tuning into the truth of what lives in our body and trusting the processes that our body is naturally choosing to go through.
Yeah, out of the mind, into the heart, and into the body. You know, for me, it was really beauty. It was nature. Beauty and nature just expanded me, and it was really moving to Hawaii. When I landed in Hawaii, I had a Hawaiian awakening and my life changed, and I really I believe that I was guided to Hawaii by my grandmothers to receive the codes of aloha, to understand what aloha really is. And one of my teachers has shared aloha is alo means face to face, and ha means breath. And so we're face to face with another, with the breath, with a face to face with you, face to face with myself, and then face to face with the natural world, which is relationships, which is what the feminine is here to relate. We are here for relationships. And when I received this through hiking, through swimming with dolphins, through the magic that this island is, it just softened me. And then through that softening, I was guided to this mentor, that meant, and then um, I just was picking up little breadcrumbs all along the way, and it led me to the hands-on, which, in 2013, I had an experience where my grandmother's soul had come to me in a yin yoga shavasana meditation, and she gave me a template on how to heal my soul. And she said to breathe, baby girl, turn your thinking mind off, go to your heart, you'll find me there. Put your feet on the earth, feel the pulse of creation flowing through you, to you, for you. Dance like everybody's watching, and you'll find me there. Speak your truth. Use kind, compassionate words. Don't fear conflict. Sing the song of your soul. Sing the song of your ancestors' soul. You'll find me there. And when you purify your heart, it will radiate. Your hands are an extension of your heart. And you will heal yourself, others, and the planet. And that's my mission. That's what I'm here to do. And she told me that in 2013. And then I came to this island in 2020, and I found the light of unconditional love through this land and through my body, through myself, self-reflective love. Aloha ma.
Meow.
I would just love to extend the invitation to those listening to just notice, to just turn your attention to your body. Because I know Milena and I felt it in my body as Jess just transmitted that poetry, the tingles,
Ooh,
and just an invitation to notice what landed, what was felt, where it landed. I swear, when you just flow like that, Jess, oh, my whole body comes online. I don't even think I hear you sometimes. My body is so like, oh, what she's saying is just whew, beautiful.
I'm flowing. There's much water flowing from my eyes.
And what I want to say about that actually is that was where, you know, my broken heart turned into my open heart. My grandmother's death devastated me, and it closed me off, and it put me into more numbing. Actually, I was like, this is it. It's done. Somebody, the person that I love so much in this world is gone. There's nothing else. And it was dark days for me for 2 years. And when she came to me and my heartbreak turned to my heart being open, and then here she was as this guide, as a white owl, which the owls are all around me now. She's always with me. And this is how I turned the ache of loss into the understanding of completion and close that gap.
Well,
And this is how we can meet grief. And it's so interesting that this is the theme of this conversation, because my grandmother was a catalyst to my heart just breaking wide open and to such a deeper level of feeling, because it is hard. It is hard and scary. It's not hard. It's scary to feel. And it can close us off to protect our hearts and to protect ourselves from loving so deeply and feeling loss so deeply. And I think it's so beautiful to have this understanding of, just completion and closure, and how we can meet grief with more openness to find acceptance, and also to receive the initiations of grief itself, which are so intertwined with beyond blood and just grief and this heartbreaking open. And it's just so beautiful the ways that your lineage, like your ancestors, the woman that lived before you, guided you into this work that you're doing now as a guide for other women, to be that voice and that messenger of understanding what really this process is and what this rite of passage is. And the truth is, we are all going to meet this threshold at some point or another.
Yes, we are.
Whether that's through menopause, sometimes for us, we experience such big changes in our body, and it may take the form of another rite of passage. And I think even that, like speaking to these themes of staying present with the body and not trying to control it, and to receive the tenderness of this process with openness and curiosity. And that's where we can really alchemize it and find that medicine and that goodness within those dark moments. And it's just so beautiful to be held by sisters, so we don't have to be going through that darkness and that density on our own. And knowing that there are women that can see you and can meet you there and can hold you in that. And even though you may have had experiences with other sisters where they did not have the capacity to do that, knowing that there are women in this world who are so ready to receive you with open arms, with open hearts, and like really just honoring this process. And it's just so beautiful, even just as a maiden, to receive so much of these codes around grief, because it's like there's parts even in maidenhood, for any of the maidens that are listening as well, where we are meeting grief. And I think that it's beautiful to start working with grief now, almost like as preparation of holding, how we can hold more grief in our body for when we are going through this transition. And I just want to say thank you so much, Jess.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, as humans, nothing is permanent. So we're constantly grieving. Grieving is just part of the human experience, and every different phase of humanhood, not even womanhood, just humanhood. So preparation is the key to success, always.
So we're curious to understand a little bit more on a personal level about your journey. And I mean, I feel like there's already been so many codes that have just been weaving so beautiful in this conversation, but even more specifically about your own rite of passage and what it's taught you around discernment, especially as you're meeting these stories and confronting the system that you were in at that time, and how this rite of passage has allowed you to become more fully yourself.
You know, for me, when I had my cycle first, this was just there was so much shame around it. I was terrified. I was hiding. I remember I was actually at camp. I was at camp, and there was just this whole shame around it, and hiding. And then I got pregnant very young. And there was so much shame around that. I wasn't married and I lived in a small town. And I really had, because of the shame and the self judgment, and actually I was living with self hatred um, already, it just threw me out of the medicine of these thresholds. And like I said, I believe that my grandmother coming to me in 2013 was her guiding me to be prepared for this threshold, and to have this medicine for myself, and to then offer it forward. But as far as discernment goes, I was already attuned to listening, but I was really in a lot of fear, because most women, all women in my lineage, in menopause had eruptions of disease. And I think this was always just some static in the background for me. And so as my body was changing, and you're not really like super aware of it, even like so many of my friends, nobody's like 46 and thinking I'm in menopause. We're just kind of like, oh, I'm still 30, I'm still feeling
Yeah.
a certain way. It sneaks up on you. It really sneaks up on you. And so, just the guidance of me being called to women's work, and just being in these circles with other women really helped me to tune into my body, and to decide what's alignment, because really discernment is like, we're not naming something right or wrong or good or bad. We're like, this is aligned or this is misaligned
Mhm.
with our soul,
Mhm.
with our essence. And so the only way that I can know what's right for me is by being in contact with my body. Other than that, I am assigned, and I'm looking for resources outside of me, and somebody else is telling me who I am and how to move. And so, really, just being with my inner authority allows me to know what is true for me in this moment
Mm.
and every moment. I feel like I might have went on a tangent. I don't know. Did I answer?
No, 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 that was a beautiful tangent. That was perfect. I think, especially speaking to discernment, and I mean, we really wanna knock that nail on the head so that people can start defining what discernment means to them. So you didn't go on any tangent. You just followed the thread. It was perfect. And I love how you said that it's not a matter of assigning good or bad, right or wrong. This is the right way. This is the wrong way. And it's really this coming back to your inner
Mhm.
authority as opposed to going external and seeking the external validation or having someone, something tell you what to do, especially when it comes to womanhood, women's bodies. And yeah, I think you really nail on the head there.
Well, when we tune into discernment, it takes the charge of judgment out of it, and judgment will make you sick. Judgment will
Yes.
make you sick. It will lead to a disease process at some point. And so we need to understand that some things are not for us and we need to know what is for us. So but if we're out of judgment and we're in discernment, then it's more of
Yes.
a flow. It's less of that harsh, and it's more of just a
Yes.
softening, and that lands in the body.
Well, especially when that judgment is coupled with shame, which I think they kind of dance hand in hand. And then that the opposite is like the constrictiveness, the secrecy that I need to hide this. This can't be seen. So yeah.
Yeah.
And so it brings us to, how are we creating our artistry and being inspired and bringing expression and creativity in this process of healing and becoming? And I'm so curious. Well, obviously, I think this is such a beautiful moment to share Beyond Blood, because it's almost like so much of this offering has been based on, created and birthed from this process that you've been in, Jess.
Yeah, I read something recently. It said the final stage of healing is becoming the artist.
Mm. Phew.
And, when you think about it, like womb work, this is our center of creation. We birth babies, but beyond birthing babies, tapping into the womb, you can birth worlds, baby. You can birth businesses, you can birth whatever if you're tuned in. And for me, I just the the judgment and the self-hatred that I lived with for so many years shut me down from my creative flow. And I wrote a poem. I have it when I was like 5 or 6 years old, and it was so it was just like the sadness of the little girl who lost her dad. And I didn't write poetry again until a few years ago. I started tapping into my inner poet, and it was here on the island. And, you guys have experienced some of my spoken word poetry, and I just love it. And I love how like riffy. I'm so proud of the poetry, and it's not mine. It's like, thank you. This is fun, it's playful, and it lands, and people get to like really experience embodied wisdom through his poetry and prayer. And I started dancing a lot more, and through yoga and just being in my body, that full expression, and through using my voice, speaking my truth. One day I'm going to learn how to sing. I hum now.
Mhm.
um
Love that.
but yeah, breath, movement, sound, touch. This is the shamanic path of alchemy.
Mhm.
And this is what Beyond Blood is. Beyond Blood is my masterpiece. It is my masterpiece that I have been getting worked by to embody this medicine, to hold space for the women that are being called to walk through this threshold with um, permission, with presence, with power, and with pleasure, of course, because pleasure is the whole point, babes.
Of
It's the whole point.
course. It's the most healing.
Goosebumps
And,
all over.
it's this, huh? Because this offering, it's just so wild, because as I've been walking through this threshold, walking with mentors, learning how to soften shame, dissolve density, and melt the madness of the freaking machine. Um, I was in this threshold. And so I had the tools, and then to bring them into my unique essence. As I was in this grief portal, both of my parents also have been dealing with disease processes. My father was diagnosed with multiple myeloma 5 years, 6 years ago, and this is cancer of the blood. And what's really interesting is that Louise Hayes says that self hatred is what causes cancer of the blood.
Wow.
And I feel that. And this is my kuleana, like my responsibility is to clear, purify self hatred from my lineage and come into self reflective love. And my father transitioned last year on Mother's Day. Was He was in the hospital, and I felt his soul. I felt the pull. I did not go. I had seen him a year and a half prior, and I actually felt that it was the last time I would be with him. I told my husband this. There was some, interesting communication with his relationship dynamic that made it tricky for me, for him to really welcome me and his life in the big moments. And so I chose not to go. And I had not had my cycle in 3 months. It was kind of, this is what was happening. She was falling away. And then Mother's Day, I wake up and it's full, and she's here. And I was so connected. My body, my womb said to me, go to the beach, purify, swim, you're in ceremony. And I knew this was for my father's soul. And I go, and I was there for hours just floating. I was just in this like surrendered state in the water. And I went home and I got my owl wings and I danced out in my land for hours, just singing and praying his soul. And in the morning, my sister called and said that he had transitioned. And I have a really beautiful connection with his soul, more than I ever had with his human. Um, and that was that portal. That was the last day that I ever had my cycle, was the day that my father transitioned.
Oh my
And so
gosh.
last year, Mother's Day, I mean, just May, this Mother's Day was my 1 year of being without my cycle, which is the definition of menopause. And so I crossed this threshold, May 13th. And Beyond Blood is just alive. It's it coming into the fullness of your feminine form. And we restore flow, function, and freedom. And it's a beautiful path.
In awe.
Like, it's just the magic. It's one of those things where, like, you can't even make this up, like, it's just so incredibly divinely orchestrated. And it's so beautiful the ways of this listening, Jess, and just like this connection to your body has just allowed so much openness for these messages and for this guidance to come through in your life. And it just
Yes.
speaks to the magic. Like, the magic will not come through you until you're open to receive it and to see it and to experience it and to be guided by it. Because the more you listen and go in the direction it's guiding you, the more that it's going to show up in your life. And just to hear your story and to just listen and also witness the ways that your journey has led you to this masterpiece.
And how those breadcrumbs just got bigger and bigger and bigger. And it's like, it's not a breadcrumb anymore. This is like your
It's a
medicine,
whole loaf of bread, right?
yeah.
And that's the
Yeah.
womb journey, because I had to gestate, right?
Yeah.
Like, you received this download like 2013 to reconnect with your bodies
Yes.
in your body in the ways that you started doing at the time. And then to now, 2026. And then going through this process of menopause and then going through that threshold and birthing this work is just
And purifying.
purifying. And like, that is such a powerful gestation and metamorphosis process that you went through to then embody and experience and live this medicine.
And this is the gift of wonder and awe and curiosity. When you're curious, then you're available for magic. And I have this wonderful acronym for magic that I don't know if I've shared it with you before, but it's my awareness and gratitude of infinite consciousness. Magic.
Mm. My
Magic.
awareness and gratitude of infinite
Infinite
consciousness.
consciousness. Magic. It's magic.
And you know what? To truly know and integrate these codes as a maiden, like you could not do this without time and experience. Like
Right.
there is just such a level of respect and reverence and honoring, Jess, like just receiving your medicine, especially being in this space, of sharing the medicine of Venusian womb and also just really taking a step back and listening. Because there is so much wisdom that comes with that experience and with life and just being out in the world and being in this process of knowing yourself and becoming. And it's just so beautiful to receive all of the distillations of what you've experienced in your life, Jess.
Thank you.
Infinite
And I
gratitude.
think, yeah, to close us off, our final question for you, Jess, would be what would you leave women with? Like a little, or what would you have them carry as they are on their journey of becoming? Like a little message to leave women.
Your wild and wise woman is upon you. She chooses love and she lives in her heart. Adore her and adorn her. Make her feel like art.
If this conversation stirred something in you, stay with it a little longer. Notice what resonated. Notice what challenged you. Notice what your body knows, and notice what it may still be learning. Discernment is rarely about arriving at certainty. More often, it is the practice of remaining curious, grounded, and willing to stay in relationship with the questions that matter. If you'd like to continue exploring with us, join our newsletter for reflections, resources, and deeper conversations inspired by each episode. You'll find everything linked in the show notes. Until next time, may you continue learning when to trust yourself, when to question yourself, and how to discern the difference.